Hey folks, so welcome to another live session on how to acquire customers for your own e-commerce brand. So we have been thinking about it a lot of time, and we have got a lot of questions also around asking us to how do we acquire those new set of customers. And typically what happens, it's quite difficult when you start a new brand, and there are a lot of brands out there in the market, and it's quite difficult to do that. So how do we do that, and how do we effectively plan out the every stage of customer acquisition funnel? So we're gonna do each and everything here step by step, right? It's gonna be super fun and everything. I just wanted you to drop some boom around there, and just tell me where where are you guys joining in. I can see there are a couple of people have joined in, four of them, I guess. So just drop in the comment like from where are you watching it, and I guess we can start the conversation from there, and slowly we'll pick up get started with the content on how to do that stuff. So I'm just waiting for a couple of comments up there so I can just get started, right? So I'm pretty much excited because this is a really interesting segment, where you acquire customers, and that's the blood and sweat of any brand. So yeah. Cool, I can see some people up there, but I guess there's no more response to it, but fine. So we'll start with our the content of. So as you can see, our agenda of this workshop is to help you to construct the idea of how to get that customers, right? So eventually what happens is, when we start scaling our brand, or even when we start doing or thinking about building an e-commerce brand, the first thing that comes in our mind is to obviously get sales, right? Because sales is the integral part of any e-commerce business, and that's it's what I called as a golden opportunity in e-commerce. Because if you consider e-commerce versus other industries, the product market fit, or what we call a product concept fit, or anything, just from an idea to execution, and the result is quite fast as compared to other segments of industry. So, and that is reason is because you get orders maybe on the day 2 or day 3 of once you have got started as a brand, right? So that's the reason why this segment of acquiring customers is quite interesting and everything. So I just wanted to know from where you guys are coming on, and then we can get started from there, right? So I guess we can get started. Just waiting for a couple of people to join in. Cool. So I'm gonna share each and every details with you about customer acquisition and how top D2C brands do it. You might have seen different ads and different ways customer acquisition model, and you might be feeling that how do they do it, how do these big brands go against some more traditional brands out there, and how do they beat the market and all. So we're gonna cover everything in it, right? So my key objective of this workshop is to give all the information and everything, whatever I have, with my 4 to 5 years of experience in this D2C space, is to give it to you all, and that too for free. Typically, if I would do a general consultation like this, I typically charge around like $200 to $500 to do such consultation. But for this, just because you're following type of and you love our content, it's just for you and it's for free, right? So that's the best part of it. Let me tell you, there's no rocket science behind what we think of customer acquisition, right? Right from the start, where you're first building your brand, to a point where you're scaling it. There's no typical rocket science, but it's just a simple 7-step process, right? And today in this workshop I'll be covering each and everything, so stay tuned. Here we have some really interesting stuffs, like some different tools and everything that I'll help you, that will help you in this workshop, and you can go down, you can go directly from it. And if you stay long in this workshop, at the end we're going to give you a URL where you can download all these assets which we have mentioned on this workshop. So yeah, staying tuned and watching me fully concentrated, it's going to be super fun, right? Cool. So before we jump into all the nitty-gritty content and everything, so let me give you an idea of who exactly I am and how am I eligible to talk about this. So hey folks, I am Sanmay Biswal. So I head growth here at Typeof. Previously I have held growth positions in India's fastest growing D2C brand, and I have helped a lot of D2C companies from ground start to up to $100 to $2,000 per day, right? So I have managed accounts ranging like to $2 to $3 million per year, right? That's the ad spend which I have managed and the marketing spend I have managed. So I think whatever I have learned in that segment would really help you out. So yeah, let's get started. So just before a little question which just a second. Kya?
Your screen wasn't visible.
Oh, sorry, I guess my screen wasn't visible. Okay, cool. So just before we enter into the nitty-gritty steps and the 7-step process which I shared with you, just wanted to know your thoughts on what exactly would be the e-commerce market right now in current e-commerce market. Can anyone guess? And the one who would guess it right will give you some really exciting stuffs. So just put down in the comment what exactly currently it's going on in the e-commerce market. I'm waiting for some comments up there, but yeah. Cool. So this is a graph that shows the growth of e-commerce industry in India. Now it's there in $1 billion. So right at the start of 2020, right, which was the previous 2 years back, e-commerce industry was at $46.2 billion market share. That's still a lot, like it's quite a lot, right? Even getting half of a chunk or even 1% of it would mean a lot for your brand. And as you can see, with time going on and on, the graph goes like 10x of the speed, right? From 2020 to 2030, there's almost like a 20 to 30x growth, right? 10x growth typically, right? 10x, around 10x growth. So that's how fast e-commerce brand is, market is growing. In last 5 years alone, now this data doesn't have the last 5 years data alone, but recently I read a research done by India's one of the popular publishing brand who likes to create content around and data around D2C. They have done a research, and they have seen a graph that in just past 5 years, Indian e-commerce has grown crazy at a 10x rate, right? That's the exact rate which it is going currently. If you can see, from 2020 to 2030, it's going at a rapid fast pace, right? So that's really a good sign, because now this is a good opportunity for you if you are looking to grab that 1% of the market. So let's take a pause, because we are still at the halfway, almost like a 25% of the workshop, and we haven't introduced any of ourselves. So I will just take 5 minutes of my time and just wait for anyone to jump on and introduce each other. Cool. So let's continue. So now let's explore that 7 steps that will help you to maybe conquer that 1% of or become one of the brands that is heading that e-commerce space in India, right? So let's cover that. So it's a very simple 7-step process. I call it as UMOCPSA. There's really fancy stuff. I have just made it up by combining, just cutting off first letters or of every step. So it's quite difficult to pronounce also, but this is the particular step that I'm gonna cover in this workshop, right? So from starting phase, the U stands for a unique selling point, right, or unique selling value proposition, whatever you can call it. So typically it's why would I buy from you, right? Then we have market analysis as the second step. Then we have offer creation, then choosing your channel of outreach, then we have store setup, and then we have the launch and analyze plan. So we're gonna cover each of the segments in detail, right? So just stay with me for the next 45 minutes and we're gonna go up there. So next 45 minutes I'm gonna cover each and every segment of it, and at the end of this workshop we're gonna have a Q&A session where you can ask questions if you have anything in mind, right? So let's start. Now let's talk about the unique selling point or the unique selling value proposition, whatever you can call it, right? So typically its definition, what it stands for, is a marketing statement that makes you to gives a statement that why and how you differ from your competitors or any other brand out there in the market. So I typically call it as in your customer's head is just like, okay, there are a lot of brands out there in the market, so how are you different from the other brands out there in the market? That means your competitors and all, and why should we buy from your brand, or why we should buy your product? That's typically the conversation happening inside your customers, right? Now think of it, it's actually true, right? So whenever if you come around a new brand or something, you find something quite really interesting in that brand that picks your mind, and you think that, okay, that looks interesting, and this is why I'm going to click that that post or that ad, or just go into the landing page and go to the website and check what exactly are they trying to do. Is it something really organic or something? It depends from product to product, but that's typically what intrigues me. Now if you would have tell me that, okay, now this is a razor brand, let's consider it we have something called as razor, or let's do one thing. So we have two marketplaces, right? All of them become are from same company, but let's consider this one is from a different company and this one is from a different company, right? Now if I see an post saying that, hey, we sell or let's say, hey, this is a marker pen, right? It's quite normal, right? It's quite normal. It's quite, it won't make me to take that action. I'm just going to scroll Instagram and find my other way and look out for memes. Memes is something I like a lot. I'm sure you guys might also love memes, so I would also love to know how many of you guys actually watch memes on day-to-day basis. So that's one thing, but yeah, let's continue. So let's say this is a very generic brand and I just saw that ad. I'll just skip it and I'll just go over and talk about other stuff. But let's say if I see a same post where it says that this marker actually is chemical free and it helps you to make your it helps you to make your mark or bring the status or something around that, right? So this would actually intrigue me because this is something that relates to me, right? So that's what I typically call it as a USP. What's your differentiator from that particular brand, right? It can be on any ground instincts, right? There are a lot of companies that do on X variants. There are a lot of companies that do on Y things and Y. But typically what I found that in a USP, if you're not sure what exactly should I pinpoint my USPs, this is what I call it as 3x3 gradient, where typically any product consider any of the product or any brand, they typically differentiate each themselves in this particular category or combination of this particular attributes. So one is pricing, right? Then the second one is quality, or the make or anything around that. Then the third one is the cause. The fourth one is the variety. The fifth one is the convenience or easy to use, and the fifth one is influence or status. Now let's talk about each of this thing, right? Let's talk about pricing. Now let's say if your competitor is charging for the same marker 5 rupees and you're charging 20 rupees, or let's say the competitor is charging 20 rupees and you're charging 10 rupees for that. That's typically where you're keeping yourself judged on the basis of price, right? But that's not something which I would suggest you to make yourself as a differentiator over there, because price is something, it's quite it's quite generic for different person. Now for me, might be that I'm a little price conscious, but also I'm a little quality conscious, right? So for some people there will be like, oh, okay, price is the big priority, and then second point, price is just that. So, and it's quite difficult to stay in the game when you're head on as a USP with pricing, right? So let's say for example, here at Typeoff, we actually help e-commerce entrepreneurs build their own e-commerce brand with their own e-commerce website that has all these facilities like inventory management, logistic management, RTO, optimizer, all those and so forth, right? Now there are also e-commerce stores builder that out there in the market. Those are way cheaper than, let's say, Typeoff, or there are also e-commerce builders, those are way expensive than Typeoff, right? So if we are to play that pricing game, it's quite difficult to play that. Whereas where we position ourselves as, we build the easiest solution for e-commerce entrepreneurs with the less cost you would have to pay, plus with all the rich features which you would have got in maybe like $100,000 software or something like that, right? So we play pricing as another component to what we call it as convenience and quality, right? Convenience, quality means performance, right? So you can take any of the components up here. Now let me explain cause and convenience and status, other properties as well. So quality is something, you have that quality in your brand, in that particular product. So your product is made up of, let's say if you're thinking of shirts, let's say it's made up of 100% cotton, 100% handmade, precisely driven and all this stuff. So that's gonna be a unique value proposition as well. Talking about the cause are also, let's say this shirt is made from 100% recycled materials. So now you're associating your brand with a cause that it will help others to, it will make the planet a better place, right? So my previous company was doing the same thing. So that's typically a cause. Or for example, let's say there's a cool you can call it a Lenskart, right? What Lenskart does. So Lenskart typically, let's say every pair of lens or everything which you wear, they donate a pair or they donate some amount of money towards their charity. That's the same thing the other a US brand called as Warby Parker, I'm not sure if that's the name. They also do the same. So whenever you buy a pair of glasses, they will donate the same to someone who is not able to buy that, right? So they are associating with a cause. Now a lot of time that becomes that unique value proposition. Then you can actually define your unique value proposition on the variety stuff. Now typically that's a multi-vendor or e-commerce or marketplaces thing, where you have a lot of varieties. So it could be a Myntra, or it could be Amazon, or it could be a typical marketplace where you have bunch of varieties for a single statement point, right? So that's typically where the marketplace role comes in, but not suggestible for D2C brands, right? Sometimes you can do, let's say, a one-stop shop for fashionable sneakers, you can do that, or one-stop shop for easy to build toys or something like that, right? If you're selling that kind of stuff. So variety is something which you can make yourself differentiate with. The fifth one which we have is convenience or ease of use. Let's consider mobiles few years back, right? It's or computers few years back. Before launching of Apple or Microsoft or that kind, IBM was operating. There was other companies, Xerox or something, they were building something in that space. It was quite difficult to operate computers. You have to work on MS DOS or something out there. It is quite difficult. Like you have to code. For people like me who are literally technically challenged and something like that, it's quite difficult to do that. So when Apple came into picture and they said that, hey, you can do all this amazing stuff with this Mac, which is quite easy to use, just have to do drag and drop stuffs, and that's great, right? So that's convenience. Now there is, let's say we have for type of, there's a competitor known as Shopify, right? Shopify, people say that okay, it's quite easy to use, and typically what we have got feedback from customers who have switched from Shopify to type of, they say that Shopify is easy, but easy for the developers, because previously what it used to happen in this, for developing that really back end, front end is quite easy, right? You can build that within just hours or something, but building that back end and doing some changes in that, it requires a hell lot of time. So Shopify made it quite easy, and now if you want to change something there on Shopify, you would require a developer for that. That's really another cost and really another headache for a e-commerce brand owner. So with Typeof, you can do that with easily. Plus, you don't have to juggle around a lot of people, and you don't have to juggle around our different apps, and you can do all those stuff quite easily. So we position ourselves as a ease of use, quite easy, ease of use with a better performance, and driven by a cause that we support handmade, additions for that. So we use three attributes together, right? And the last one is, I typically call it an influencer status. Now think of premium brands like Rolls-Royce or like the segment of Gucci and all those stuff. Now they play around this unique luxury kind of thing that the people typically get influenced by that. You can if you're not that till that kind of brand, if you're thinking of doing that, you can start with celebrities. Let's say celebrities release their own brands. So that becomes a quite influential stuff, even though that products might be a good or might not be good, that's questionable, right? So these are the typical 6 parameters based on which you can make your own USP, right? So it's better to actually combine like 3, best of 3 is always the best. So just combine 3 of it and you will find your first USP. So I'm sure you have all this thing done and all. So let's take a point and jump in, see if you have any questions, then we can cover, or we can move on to the next part. Okay. Cool. I guess we can get started with the next segment, right? So the next set of the formula is doing the market analysis, right? Now I have seen a lot of brands struggled in this, and sometimes they skip a lot of stuffs in this, but typically it's actually one of the most critical aspect, because if you don't know anything about the market, or you don't know where your customers are, what they do and how they do it, it's quite difficult to figure out how will you put that value proposition in front of them, or how will you figure out that okay, is this value proposition the right thing for them, right? So typically like, do you know your perfect customers and what are their behaviors? So if not, then you should try to find the answer of that, right? So questions that would help you to really answer that is like, who is my ideal customer and where are they and what are they doing? Now think of it like if you're owning a apparel brand, right, and you're making cool funky kind of designs which are designed for youngsters. Now you gotta think that, okay, who's my typical customers? The uncles might not buy my brand, right? A typical customer would have a age range of between 18 to 25. Now that's the typical range. Now I would have to also see that what exactly would be a suitable price for them. So when people around there are quite young, for most of the time, that there's still, there's fashion trend that they buy a really luxury stuff and all, but there's very very small audience out there. So for that level of audience, typically the price point would be around 1,000 or 2,000. They won't spend much more than that, right? So if that's the case, so you would price that in that way, right? Now your next question would be, okay, now where do they spend their maximum time? Is it on Facebook? I'm not sure if they are there on Facebook. Is it on LinkedIn? They might have an account on LinkedIn, but typically they are not active enough or looking for products to buy on LinkedIn. Instagram, yeah, they could be. TikTok, it's banned in India, but in US it's still the case. Snapchat, maybe, I'm not sure. So you got to figure out all these questions. So we have actually developed a really interesting question set, which we call it a market analysis 9-step question step, right? Which you can find out. So we have all this question written out there, right? So number one question is, what is the typical age of my customer? Where are they residing? Are they residing on Tier 1 or are they residing on Tier 2 cities? In Tier 1, what are they? Like typically, are they mostly in Mumbai or are they mostly in Delhi, or where exactly? If you're looking to target the entire India, that's what the question you would need to ask. But if you're looking to target different countries and all, then you have to literally think about there in that case, right? Now, are they the buyer or an influencer or a decision maker? Now let's take a little pause and think about it. Like, let's say if that's your customer, they would be a buyer, right? Sometimes it doesn't happen. Think of it a case as Mammy Poco Pants, a company that makes products for babies, right? Now they have product for babies. That means the buyers are babies, right? Typically that's not right, because babies can't buy their own products. They can hardly step out and speak for themselves, or they can hardly crawl up to that date, right? So it's quite difficult for them to pay actually money for your product. So here, buyer is not the baby. The baby is the user, but the buyer might be her mom or her father. But typically an influencer or a decision maker would be her mom for sure, right? So you need to also figure out like what role are different people playing in your particular ideal customer prospect list, right? So who are the decision makers? You need to reach those decision makers and the buyers, right? Not the end users. End users will eventually figure it out, because buyers and decision makers have already figured it out for them in this case, right? For apparel brands who are making for kids also, that things come in that way, right? So that's another thing. Then what things do they love to do in their spare time? Now, considering back to our example of a young apparel brand, typically they might be spending time on bars, or they might be spending time on clubs, doing maybe some sporting stuff on so on and so forth. So these are small interest events that you are actually collecting, and you are building that so that you can create content or something, which will cover that in the next part around that, right? So typically that's quite the case. Are they working professional, housewife or kids? You need to know that. Which platforms are they mostly active in? What kind of influencers do they follow? What type of content do they watch? Do they watch comedy content, or do they watch really serious content on YouTube, like how to do stuffs like that? And when do they typically use their product? So this question is quite interesting because let's say your product is like water bottle, right? So when is the typical time you're gonna need a water bottle? When you're thirsty, right? So this question is used to bring that trigger point inside their brain. Now think of a statement where we are seeing a photo album and suddenly you saw a face of a boy was your best friend in your childhood, and you say that, oh my god, this is my best friend. I don't have his number, maybe I'll share, figure it out and just go out there in Facebook and try to find them. If you see, you were not doing any action prior to that. Now just because you have figured out that, okay, this is my best friend, but I don't have anything for them, right? So now you will go out there and try to find stuff. So that really helps you to figure out that trigger moment for your product, right? So let's jump in. So that's all the 9 questions which we have covered, and if you want, we'll actually ship out all these questions to you and all these slides if you just stay long enough. We won't be giving any links if you don't stay till the end. So if you stay till the end, we have really good surprises for you, right? So let's cover the next part. Now till now, I would love to know, is there any doubts or do you have any questions regarding this? Cool. So let's jump off and let's discuss the typically 3 ways of acquiring a customer. Now acquiring customers is actually a 7-step process, but that's a process. But what are the 3 ways of doing it, right? So these are the typically 3 ways of acquiring a customer: organic, advertising, and third party. Now what exactly is organic method? In organic method, typically all this thing like influencer marketing, SEO, blogging, YouTube, social media, PR, all this thing comes into picture. Now what is influencer market? And it's quite difficult to cover all this nitty-gritty details in just one workshop, but I'll quickly jump on and just cover each element of it in a very crisp manner. So influencer marketing is something like you let others, someone who has a following, someone who has an influence, ask them to promote your product to their customers, right? So let's say if I have a following and I'm a Twitter famous or a LinkedIn famous, I would love to have that, but I'm not. Let's say if I'm that, and you know that your target audience follows me for my content, or they love the way I do stuffs, and they know me and they believe in me. So in that case, let's say whatever I would say, some of them will actually do and follow my stuff. So you as a company will come to me and say that, hey, so here's an offer, we had this good product. Now based on the likability between the 2 parties, I'll decide, okay, I'm good with promoting this, and I'll put that in as a post or something, and maybe you'll get some traffic up there. So that's one. So that is typically what happens in influencer marketing. Now SEO is something that you should be doing for sure. Like it's the bare minimum you should be doing, right? SEO is like search engine optimization, so it helps your website to get ranked in the search pages of the Google. Now if you have ever searched for anything on Google, you might have seen a lot of websites that get ranked, right? And now you might if you have any questions, it could be around like, how do these websites come in, how do Google find all these answers? So what typically happens is, whenever you do this Google search and all, there are crawlers that will go around and search different pages and then rank it, and typically as a librarian will keep it in one step, and whenever someone asks for it, it will pull up that book and just show it to the audience, right? That typically happens in SEO. Now with a lot of builders out there, they typically don't focus on the SEO. They typically focus on the building part, building the website on a very fancy and very good format with drag and drop. Typically drag and drops are quite difficult as well. But they miss on the foundation of SEO, because if your SEO is not good, if you gonna run traffic to your website as well, there will be a drop off. There will be people who won't be finding it on a Google search or something. So it's quite difficult to do that. So if you don't have the SEO stuff figured out. By the way, we're gonna cover all these topics which we are discussing quite, in a very short period. Let's say on SEO, on blogging, and everything in a very detailed format in the next coming workshop. So stay tuned and stay, subscribe to our channel for that, right? So then there is blogging, right? You can write blogs around. So typically, let's say if you are selling something like a cosmetic thing, so you can blog around like 7 tips that will help you to rejuvenate your face, or 7 tips that will help you to mask out that stuff. And I'm not typical blog around that, but you get my point, right? You can create content around that. Then you can do the same thing with YouTube and social media. That's typically a very simple synergy between that. Then there is PR. PR is typically public relations. So whenever you get mentioned on different web portals or different news media sites, let's say you got a funding and you released a press release for that, that's typically called as PR, right? So yeah, these are all the methods of organic. There are a lot of other methods as well, but typically these are the core methods of doing the organic via e-commerce way, right? So the next way of doing that is paid media ads, right? Paid media is typically Facebook ads, Google ads, and native ads. Now there are a lot of other stuffs, let's say programmatic ads, and there are a lot of other things also that goes into paid media. But typically Google ads, Facebook ads, and native ads are the bread and butter of paid media advertising, and most of the traffic and everything comes around in that space, right? Then there is something called as third party solution. So typically it's if you are sponsoring any event, or if you are the event host, you are hosting events for that, or you are having partnership. Let's say in my previous company we were having partnership with airline. So whenever someone would travel and they would be using their airline card, they would show up offer that, okay, get this % off if you get this. So that's a third party way of acquiring customer. The fourth one, which I call it as which typically is affiliate marketing, right? So affiliate marketing is there are a lot of bunch of people who will be promoting your product to get that particular commission. So it's quite quite efficient model, and Amazon actually mastered in doing that. So yeah, that's 3-way. Cool. So we are good with it. So do you have any questions? So I'm just stepping in. Fine. So for the next step, you actually have to fix onto one typical set. Now let me give you a pro tip here. If you are considering organic, because that's free, you should think a step back that do you have a lot of time, because organic takes a hell lot of time to give you result, whereas paid will give you results but obviously would cost you money upfront. Now organic on the other side will actually cost you money if you don't do it from your side. Let's say if you don't want to blog and you want to hire a content writer to do that, then in that case obviously you got to pay that content writer, right? So that's also would cost you money, whereas in paid ads as well, you have to first give the money to the Facebook or Googles of the world, and if you don't know how to run them, then you would have to give it to someone, let's say paid performance marketer, and he will do that. So in any case, business is yours. You want to scale it to the next level, you got to do that investment, right? So we call ourselves as entrepreneurs, but for sometimes we get into a trap that, okay, what will happen if I lose all the money, right? And how do I deal with all those stuff? But now think of it this way: if you throw that money and invest in your business, and you think of that what will happen if I lose the money, then you're not in the right track, because you don't have the confidence in your product. Right? And if you don't have the confidence in your product, then typically your customers might not buy your product as well, because you as an owner don't have the confidence in your product. So it's quite difficult for your customers also to believe in that. So what I would suggest is to fix on any of the 3 methods, but for sure you're gonna have to do that investment, right? And the first investment is obviously that. Then in the next step of the process is to define your offer, right? Now let's say you have this Marcasset pen, and typically when you define offer, you are telling to the marketplace that, hey, I differentiate from my brand for this, I stand for this, and these are my qualities. But apart from that, here's my offer to you that you can't refuse. Now, in general life, typically there will be in market 20% of the people that would be needing your product for sure. For the rest 80% of the people, they might not be known to your solution, or they might not be known to your problems, but they would actually need something to give them motivation. So that's where offer would come into the picture. That's where your, let's say, if just a minute, let me take a sip of water. Sorry for that, it's just feeling really thirsty. Yeah, so let's get back. So let's say if you want to give this offer and tell that, hey, now this market costs 100 rupees, but if you buy this, also if you buy two of them combined price would cost you 100 rupees. That means buy one get one free, right? Now for someone who might be looking for marker but it's not actually thinking of buying it right now, or maybe you're like, okay, I'll just stop it and maybe I'll just do it on the next day. If I say, let's say this is the offer and it's vanishing in next 24 hours, I might say, I'm getting an extra marker for the same price and it's getting vanished, so maybe I should buy the product, right? So that's where your offer plays into picture. And typically there are four type of offers, right? And I call it as TPGO, right? Transaction, product and guarantee offers, right? What is transaction? You give a straight away discount on that particular, or based on some criteria, like 20% off on, or a typically sale formula where 20% off on minimum purchase and that. Then the second one is a product based, where this just one we discussed, like if you buy this, I'm gonna give you this product for free, or if you buy this, I'm gonna give you 2 of these pens for free. That's where you are giving a product for free, whereas you're not changing the prices or doing something around that, right? So that's a second step. The third one is a guarantee. Now let's just say you have a very thin margin, you don't know how to do anything. Typically in this case it's quite difficult to bring out an offer, but what you can do is, let's say you fix that, okay, take these 2 pens, these 2 pens cost you 200 rupees, but I guarantee you that it will actually you can use this for 2 years. Now for a normal customer, that's quite a long time. Just for 200 rupees I can use it for 2 years. Now that's a call which you have to do on your product and all, but a guarantee is simple guarantees like free shipping on above X amount, or easy cancellation and returns, like would really help, right? On the fourth note, there is something like I call it as operational, where typically for new brands it's quite difficult, but for some established brand it's quite possible as well. So let's say if I buy this today, right now, at this moment, for this price, let's say 40 rupees, I'll deliver it to you within next 24 hours. Whereas if it would have done in the normal case, it would have taken like 4 days to reach you, bare minimum, right? So these kind of offers you can really break down and think about and brainstorm and define your offers around that, right? So cool. So do we have any questions around that? I guess we are good with, right? So let's move on to the next segment, that is choosing the right channel. Now, as I said, it's quite important, and we have done the exercise on the first, and where we have defined who's our core audience and where are they active in. Because let's say if you have a product and you're selling in, let's say you have this product that is meant for professors, but you're selling it somewhere near a bar, or let's say in the bar. For a moment, yeah, professors could be there, but for most of the time they won't be there. They would be mostly, for most cases, they would be near a really good institution, or like a university. So if you place that message or the offer or whatever we have discussed about that, there's more probability that they're gonna buy, whereas if you placed it in a bar, right? That's the advantage of choosing that channel. And choosing channel is actually quite really important. We have discussed all this stuff all again, right? Just a moment, there's some glitch, I guess. Cool. So for starters, if you are confused, well, like where should I find my audience and all those, just just choose among all these 4 channels: Google, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. These have been a pretty go-to channels for any e-commerce brand, and you can easily find your audience in any of the segments. So let's say if you are selling to professors, more likely they would be using Google and YouTube. If you are selling to youngsters, they would more likely to be on Instagram. If you are selling to moms, they would most likely be on Facebook and YouTube, right? So think about that, and in that case you can choose that channel. Now let's talk about setting up your online store, aka your 24/7 hour salesperson, right? Now that's typically sounds quite cool, but yeah. So there are a couple of tips we're gonna cover. There are a lot of stuffs which is there in online store setup, and we're gonna soon have really interesting webinars and workshops around that. But for starters, what you can check is, do you have all the tracking codes in place? Now when I mean of tracking code, I mean Facebook Pixel, Google Pixel, Google Analytics, and all those stuff. If you're using Typeoff, it's quite easy. You just have to go to that online store and click on the online settings, and you will be done with. You just have to paste that code, and all the codes will be easily implemented. You don't have to go to a developer and sit and say that, okay, just fire me those events, which I typically do here because I have to work with developers because we are a tech company, right? But for you, it's quite easy. Just log into your Typeoff dashboard, go to the online store setting, and you're gonna find it quite easily. Even if you don't if you are not able to find it, just there's a small WhatsApp button up there. Just click on that button, and you're gonna find it quite easily, right? The next thing is in the product pages, use benefits and features, right? It's really crucial for any brand to do that, as we have discussed, right? Then use high quality images. Images should not be, it can be compressed. Make sure it's compressed so that it's web optimized, but use high quality images. If your images are not good, you won't be able to sell those products, because in e-commerce typically your product sells on the basis of your images, right? So that's the third point. The fourth point is, have a clear state offer. The offer should be right in front of the audience, there, clearly visible on the top of your e-commerce brand, right? Then integrate your payment gateways in a correct way before the launch. Just make sure that all the things are working. Just look for all the bugs. Are you getting that orders or not? That's a really cool stuff to do, right? Then add the shopping details and shipping details in the product pages. I have seen a lot of brands, you won't believe, there are a lot of top brands which don't do it. Now, as a matter of fact, what will happen is, whenever you go to a product page, you always have this anxiety that, okay, I'm ordering now, but when will I get my product? I'm not sure about that. So that typically question comes around, and your customers might jump off. So do that and try to offer free shipping. It, for most cases, free shipping has worked like crazy and charm, right? So try to do that. Now we are all set. We have covered almost 90% of the content, and this is just the last slide. I would love to hear from you. What exactly is your feedback, and do you have any questions? Or else we'll complete this slide and we'll finish off this workshop. You'll actually miss out on a couple of cool stuffs if you haven't sticked around till the end. But yeah, cool. I'm gonna start. So the last point is to launch that campaign. Whether it be influencer marketing, whether it be SEO, whether it be paid ads, is to put all this thing, all the market analysis, all the USPs, all this thing, put that into the plan and launch it. The main important part is to launch. I have seen a lot of brands figuring out a lot of stuff, putting a lot of brain in this, and then going in and pushing it in the trash can. Just don't do that. Launch it at any cost, because Any which ways, after when you launch it, you're gonna go back into the drawing board, and after a couple of days you're gonna do an analysis of it, like find the loopholes, look at the customer journey from starting from looking at the first touch point where they see, let's say if it's an social media post, number of people who have seen is, out of that how many people of them have actually clicked onto the link, how many people have them visited your website, and where's the bug or something. Just find out that and find the loophole and fix those problems and launch and iterate it again. It's quite easy. You gotta check your Google Analytics. If you haven't done, then integrate it to your e-commerce platform. If you're running on Typeoff, you can do it like really easy. Just go onto the Typeoff, and if you don't find it, just click on the help button, and our team will get you covered, right? So that's it. That's all about today's workshop. So we'll actually stick for 5 more minutes to see if we have all this thing covered. If you have any doubts, we'll cover that, and we'll wrap up this session soon. Looks like there's no questions at all. Cool. We'll actually finish it. Let's say if you have any doubts or anything, just text us or mail us, or reach out to any of the platform we have. We are present on Instagram, we are present on Facebook. We have an awesome community where we answer all of these questions. So if you are not sure, if you haven't attended the workshop, so do visit our community. You will only and only find that video only in our community section. That's it. It was great to spend time with you. I hope you guys all loved it. We're gonna soon be back with the next event, so keep watching. Subscribe to Typeoff right now.